Right. So, hey, Brian, man, take us back before real estate and what you're doing with 247 Cash Flow University. Like, what were you doing, man? What was your life like? And how were you shaped to get into this real estate game?
Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes to think back before real estate because it's like I've become kind of a talking head for all of my friends, family, mentees, about real estate. So I'm kind of immersed in it. But before real estate, I was really like a Philly basketball guy. I mean, I grew up during the Allen Iverson era in Philly. I got really good at basketball. Grew to about 6'5" by the age of 13, 14. Was nationally ranked. We played LeBron in my first high school game. So they flew us out
Dude,
to Akron University to play him his junior year. I had like three, All-Americans. A 7-footer went to Vanderbilt, 6'8" guy went to Duke, lefty, and 6'7" shooting guard went to UVA. So we were stacked, all
that,
top 50 guys. But I mean, LeBron was LeBron. So
as a 5'9", like 5'10" on a good day,
yeah.
you're making me feel really small. Okay, I need to know before we get too far, like what is like what was playing LeBron like?
It was kind of it's hard to describe. To bring it to people today, you have to go back to the actual like context of it. I mean, there's not really even YouTube yet. I mean, we're not that far removed from like dial up, internet. So it's like you can't go and watch like LeBron's mixtape, right? People are still listening to CD players and like it's just a different world. So
Yeah.
you can't really see who this guy is. You're hearing about him, but there's not even really game film available. So, I got a 5'6", 260-pound coach who's like in practice, he's like 60 years old. Oh, if he gets the ball, he's going to go baseline and tomahawk, and he's doing all this stuff. And we're looking at him like, yeah, right. I got all Americans on the team, 7-footers. He's not doing anything, and these guys are good. I'm one of the best in the city and in the country, and I got guys who are seniors who are better than me. So I'm like, who's this one guy?
Yeah,
What's he going to do?
we've got this. Like,
We got this. And, we get out there, we land off the jet. They're talking about us on the radio, which I'm like, well, this is different. They're like name dropping us. And when we get to the arena, what really let me know we were going to be in for a long night is, you're kind of feeling people out in the layup line. So I'm going in, I'm doing my thing. My guys are doing their little, all-star routines. And I look out of the corner of my eye, and it looks like a guy just lazily went to the lane, and it looked like his elbow was at the top of the square. And I'm just like, no, that didn't happen. So I start trailing this guy, number 23. That was him. Let me just sit here and watch this guy. And I saw him going again, and he got maybe his whole head above to where he was like looking down into the rim. And I'm like, oh boy, it's gonna be a long night. Haven't seen anything like that before at 13, 14. So it was a long night, incredible experience. And we played a lot of good people that year, but LeBron is definitely different. I mean, he's always been, leaps and bounds above the competition, but I can say out of like some really great high school basketball players I played against and seen, he was always just like a different level. He was ready for the pros even as a junior in high school.
that's incredible. I mean, okay, so
Yeah.
you're a high level athlete then, playing high level
Yeah.
people, and especially in like athletics. And I was never to the level that that you were, and yet you learn like a lot of discipline and things like that. I mean, I've got to imagine that even then in high school and in college through your athletic career, you're having instilled in you some of the principles that have led to your success. Like, what would you
Definitely.
say about like someone like, like what were some of those things that you had taken into your business career?
It's really delayed things that are hard for today because everything's so immediate, but delayed gratification is one. Definitely just a strong work ethic, like doing what it takes to get on the court is similar to what you need to do in business. When you're first starting, when you're building a business, there's a lot of grunt work involved. Like for me, I had to go get rebounds to get on the court. I was a great rebounder, and I could bring that to any team, and it was very important. So, but then once you're on the court, now you can start to showcase other talents. In business, when you're getting started, you have to do the grunt work early on. You're not going to have the virtual assistants, all the teams, and all the support there when you're first getting started. So you're the grunt guy. So you got to go and pound the phones, make the calls, and do the research. and do some of these things that you'll ultimately hand off. But having that work ethic and trusting that if I did the work, I would get the reward, even if it was years down the line. Having built that in sports, it was very useful. It's something that I just reverted back to as I transitioned into like financial planning, asset management, and some of the things I got into right out of college.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And I think in a world that's like a microwave culture that we want everything now, I have new agents come into my offices all the time, and it's like they're 2 months in the business and they already think they deserve this, and they haven't put in the work yet, the time. And it's like trying to convince people that time on task is like something that they need to go through, be that grunt, that gopher, and learn this business before it really rewards you. I think that's a really big lesson and takeaway. So all right, so you doing your athletic career and then you get into financial planning.
Yeah, I graduated. I had some good mentors like along the way. I was doing internships at Columbia University. One of them is I was interning for a oil options trader. He's trading gas and oil options, and he's making 5-10 million a year doing this, trading on a tablet, 5 hours a day. 9:30 to 2:30, and they're exposing me to making money with your mind, not with your body, and they're making more money than athletes. So, by the time I got out, I was just like, man, I think I want to get into finance and start to run down this path. So I got into financial planning and started learning about insurance and annuities, cold calling attorneys, pounding the phones, doing the grunt work. Survived that gauntlet, which has about a 90% failure rate. But I was my own boss, 100% commission from day one, no salary. And that made me fearless because I was just eating what I killed, and I started to understand that 2-month delay, we call it. Like the work you put in today, you're not going to see that commission, that check for 2 months, and you start to trust the energy, and that allowed me to be able to just build a business, trusting that the energy I put in would ultimately pay off, and that got me into asset management. Ended up taking a job at a high net worth boutique firm in Midtown Manhattan, where we were managing about 1.3 billion for 300 families. So high net worth investments. And I worked at a startup for a couple of years. That kind of showed me what's behind the veil of a company, working with the engineers, working with the product managers. I was running the call center and programming all the agents, and we were selling insurance direct to consumer all across the internet, all across the country. And just seeing what's behind a company, how to build it organically from 20 people to 500 people. How does that happen? What departments do you need? And, doing that, it just all was preparing me to start my own real estate operation.
That's really neat. And so what year was it like when you decided to, hey, I'm going to transition out of this? You've made the transition from working with your body to your mind, but now you're going from financial planning, insurance, annuities, those types of things into real estate. Like, did you read a book? Did you stumble upon something? Like, what
Yeah.
was that like?
No, I had a buddy. Like the people you surround yourself with, you will become. Like it's a guarantee. And I had my best friend that I went to high school with. We shared that LeBron experience together as well. He got into real estate. He was a little older than me. He got into real estate. We were doing the Kiyosaki books. He's reading the Donald Trump books. He's just reading everything about real estate. And he had a couple of Section 8 properties at the time. I remember going out. We went out to like a bar or something, like college age, and he pulls out a stack of 2,500 like cash, and I'm like, oh, what's that? Because we're broke college kids, yeah, to get your attention. He's like, oh, it's the rent money, and it's like, well, I want some of that. So it was always on my mind. So even as I was working financial planning, 100% commission, whatever I was doing, I was always saving my money and buying property. So as a financial planner, I bought my first triplex. Then when I got into high net worth investments, I bought another 2 properties, a duplex in Jersey, a single family in Baltimore. I was always investing out of town while I was doing this. And then as I got to the startup, it was it's a funny thing for anybody who works at a startup, it'll resonate with them. But when you work at a startup, you go because you can like bring your dog to work and wear jeans, right? It's like, this is what they like sell you on, right? But you start working so hard you start putting in 18-hour days and working the real startup life and bringing the work home and working weekends, you start to think, if you're an entrepreneur like me and you've worked 100% commission, you just think, well, why don't I just work this hard for myself? Because if I work this hard for myself, I can build my own business instead of working this hard to build, somebody elce's. So
they don't tell you that
was
the reason they let you bring your dog is because the dog will die at home. Exactly.
They'll put the dog to work. If the dog could do work, they'd put the dog to work too.
Running papers back and forth. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big aha for a lot of, it's a pretty common story, right? Like you're doing the grind, you're putting in like a ton of hours, and you have this kind of, just this aha moment, this epiphany, if you will, of like, hey, if I'm a hard worker, if I have the discipline and the work ethic to do this for someone else, why not do it for myself? And you're already tasting and seeing that cash flow from these properties that you're acquiring. So I'm curious, like, was it the security that you had in your cash flow from the first like several properties that like gave you the confidence to go like do this, your business on your own? Are you just that type of fearless person who's like just burns the boats and runs into it headlong? Or like, tell me some of the mindset around that working for yourself.
I mean, when you get thrown into the gauntlet of 100% commissions sales right out of college, when everybody else is doing like iBanking and bringing home $180, and you're just like flat broke, cold calling, getting cursed out, you develop what's called rhino skin. I mean, your skin just becomes 12 inches thick. You just can't be disturbed. So it really was the rhino skin was part of it. There is also just tasting that cash flow. I call it the Clark Kent Superman syndrome, where you become a boss like by night and you're an employee by day. And at some point it becomes like this battle of the two egos. Like you go out for lunch, you're cursing out the contractor, like, get it done. We got to hit the deadline, and you're stressed out. And then you come in and you try to pretend to be an employee, but your mindset is not an employee because you're a business owner, you're a boss. So now you're struggling within yourself of trying to pretend to be an employee, and like you don't know how to run the ship, and like you're beneath your boss, but really you're at your boss's level, because you're, as a boss, your job's to put out fires all day, and you do it for a living as well. So as that struggle happens, one person's going to win, Superman or Clark Kent. And usually the Superman beats, the heck out of Clark Kent, and you'll end up jumping.
I've never heard it put that way, but I think it's one of the most it's one of the best breakdowns, I think. Like every time I teach cash flow quadrant now, I'm just going to dial you up, Brian, and be like, yo, listen to the Superman analogy.
It really is. It is. It's that internal voice going on in your head. Like I'm a boss, and you just can't put on the glasses and the button down anymore. You just want to rip it off and show the S on your chest and go out and tackle whatever problems in front of you, because that's who you are. It starts to take over your personality. Yeah.
Very cool. So give everyone an idea of kind of like what the makeup of your portfolio is today, and like what you focus on today as as this cash flow building is concerned.
Yeah. So I my portfolio can look like a hodgepodge to somebody who's just kind of taking a snapshot of it. But what it is a series of iterations. So when I first started doing this, the strategy was, go out and just do Section 8. Section 8 is great. And Section 8 can be great, especially during like recessions and times like we've seen now with shutdowns and where there's stimulus, where the government's paying. So it can be good. The problem is it's not super scalable. It can be slow. You're dealing with the city inspections. You're just dealing with a different agency that doesn't have a lot of efficiency. So it's not the tenants, it becomes the Section 8 office that can slow you down, having to go through their process. So maybe 90 or so Section 8 properties. Then it became, when you're doing a Section 8 game, you start to get very smart. You start to think, well, how can I get more cash out of this asset class? And how you do it is by adding more bedrooms, right? So you got to add density to that property. So if you have a 3-bed, 1-bath, you better flip the kitchen from the back of the house into the dining room, kill the dining room, have a nice eating kitchen, and put a bed in the back. Now it's a 4-bed, 1-bath, and I can get a 4-bed voucher holder, and that's an extra $250 a month. Once you get into that iteration, you start thinking outside of the box. Well, what if I just blew up this house and built it into 3 master suites, like 3 big bedrooms with a master bathroom within it, and then rented out each individual suite? And that's co-living. And that's that iteration where we're busting up a single family residence into 3 beds and 3 baths, renting out each master suite on its own, and creating more cash flow. And when you do that, you're creating what I would call the true affordable housing, the true solution to the affordable housing crisis. Without vouchers, there's no voucher, there's no low income housing tax credit required, no government agency stepping in. This is truly just build it and they will come. And there are millions of Americans living on their parents' couch or in the basement that can't afford $1,200, $1,300 a month. If you can build a co-living 1 bed, 1 bath where people have their own privacy, like a studio living, where all they're sharing is the kitchen, and they can rent that for $750 a month, utilities included, you've created this unique product that doesn't exist for workforce housing. The person that's driving for Amazon, the person that's driving Uber, the person that's working at the mall, where they're making $2,500, $3,000 a month. But, this is what they can afford and live comfortably and have a quality of life. So I started to get into co-living. And when I did that, things really started to accelerate because it unlocked value in terms of cash flow, after repair value, because now I'm almost in a league of my own. I have a 3-bed, 3-bath. Everything else is a 3-bed, 1-bath. So what does the appraiser do? Am I a 4-bed, 2-bath comp? Am I, what am I?
Right.
I'm at least worth the most expensive 3-bed, 1-bath, right? So you start to get inside of the matrix of this real estate thing and kind of crack that code. So there's a good mixture of, co-living, Section 8, regular market tenants, mix in a couple of flips here, even though I've never met a developer who didn't regret selling the property. So, you'll mix a couple in and then regret those. But it's just a bit of a hodgepodge.
Well, that's perfect, because I do have a couple questions Section 8, but I think I want to actually focus more on this co-living aspect, because I think for a lot of listeners, it's probably a newer concept, and maybe they've heard about co-living as like house hacking or, whatever, you want to call it. But you're talking about like truly developing, not just utilizing the existing floor plan of a home, but really like redeveloping it into something that's made for this purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting concept. So like, are you building these things from the ground up? Are you just blowing up all walls and creating a new floor plan? Like, bring us into the nuts and bolts of that. How are you developing these co-living spaces?
No, definitely. So how we're doing it in a nutshell is I'm going to typically target shells. I like targeting shells, especially in major cities. Most of these major cities across the country were built in like 1915, 1920. I mean, the properties are 100 years old. They're falling down. So even if you try to do the HGTV thing and run in, I'm going to save this, get rid of that, you might as well blow up the whole property or assume a full gut. Because when you pull back the walls and you see that they tied in the electric through these junction boxes and this, wiring is from the 1950s, you're going to burn your house down if you leave it. You might as well just go in and full gut it. But as you're full gutting, once you get down to those 4 walls, you need to start to think like I have a buddy who's an architect in New York from a really good family. And he's the one that got me thinking truly outside of the box. Like he designs office space buildings. And he's like, Brian, most of these people are building offices like it's 1970. Like they're building like Xerox's office or something. And he's like, this is for startups now. People don't use offices the same. We can't build them the same now. And when he started talking to me about that, I started to apply it to what I did and think, well, how do people use the house? They're not eating in the dining room. These kids don't want to eat with their parents, and then the Gen Zers and like they're ordering seamless. They're going back to their room. They're on their laptop. Even if everybody's at the table, everybody's head is in the phone. Nobody's really eating together. So you don't need that dining room anymore. It's dead space. So then you start to think, well, what can I do with this space? How can I create something that is, has a better footprint from a use standpoint? What do people not want to share? If I go to anybody, I've asked hundreds of people this. If you had the option to share the kitchen or the bathroom, which would you share? Kitchen. Every time.
Yeah.
kitchen every time. So that means if I can create more bathrooms where everybody has their own private bathroom, I've created a solution of from a use standpoint. So you start to just redesign properties, not based upon what everybody else was doing, but on how people actually live. And you break them down from the four walls to reframe it. On the first floor, you'll have like the kitchen. Once you walk in the door, you have a kitchen, eat-in kitchen with a small living room area, breakfast bar. Behind that, co-living suite, 1 bed, 1 bath. The bathroom you can only get to through the bedroom. So it's truly like this studio just to yourself. Upstairs, 2 co-living suites. And now we have 3 suites that'll rent for $750 a month each in a property that would be a 3-bed, 1 bath that would rent for $1,250. So I've now increased the cash flow from $1,250 to $2,250 per month. It's $1,000 of extra cash flow. So as rates are going up, different things that are happening in the market, I've created enough cash flow to create a cushion to where I'm still cash flowing in markets where nobody's cash flowing because conditions have changed. And this is why we need to start thinking outside of the box. I'm also creating affordable housing.
Well, that's the other thing that you mentioned.
Necessary.
Like and it's all like everything I'm hearing you say, Brian. It's like it is. You think very much as I believe a business owner should. Like, I mean, problem solution. What is the problem that I can afford? And you're sitting there taking your Section 8, blending it with these like principles of commercial real estate where we reconfigure, and then like you even reference like, what does an appraiser do? Well, one of the appraisal approaches is highest and best use, right? And so you just prove to them, like, what's the highest and best use of this space? Well, it's to give everyone their own bathroom. So like, I'm almost forced to appraise this thing higher so that you as an investor can then go pull even more cash out of it to go do your next thing, right? And so
absolutely.
Like, what I love is how logical your entire approach is in this. What have been some of the like, challenges that you've run into with co-living? Because as you just explained it, it's like, oh yeah, this solves a problem. And so it's easy to create this additional cash flow. Are there any like setbacks that you've had?
I think there's just a stigma of like people thinking, oh, well, people are living together. This is not going to work, right? Because now people have to share a common area. They're sharing the kitchen. How is this going to work? I don't want to manage that many people. Look, there's so much cash flow there. You could just hire a virtual assistant for $500 a month to pick up the phone and send out maintenance and manage this thing. Like you can solve your way around that, but there is the stigma. I think because it doesn't exist, there's just this education piece where for an investor, if I was going to build this house for them, which I do, I just finished building a co-living property for an out-of-town investor in Philly. There's an education piece where you have to educate them on, how to pick tenants and, sticking with that logic, I'm going to put similar people together. I'm going to solve around this. I'm not going to put somebody's 60-year-old grandma with, the 25-year-old, guy who wants to party. It's going to be, if this is a men's house and everybody's 30 and kind of grad school student age, that's what they're going to be. If this is a women's house and everybody's like 27 and kind of younger, that's what it's going to be. So you start to put like-minded people in the property. You create efficiencies, you create house rules, you put security cameras and different things in place. There's a system. There's like a method to the madness. So there have been challenges in doing this and running into brick walls, but I've essentially solved through kind of all of them over the course of time. And it really is some iteration of that, security, rules, like-minded people. It's definitely underwriting, learning how to pick people. There are things about underwriting that I know that it's almost paradoxical. Like, so who pays their rent more? A guy and a girl who are like a couple, no kids, both have jobs. They want to stay in a co-living unit, or a single mother with a young kid. Who pays their rent more at a higher clip? The single mother with the kid. What? Why? Because she's got the motivation. She's got more to lose. She's trying to keep the roof over the head. And it's like, people don't know this though. So you can, if you're not this low to the ground and you're not in the weeds in a data room with me, you'll miss it. You'll do it wrong for, one reason or the other. But, I've done this hundreds of times. So I fine tuned it, to this point and really gotten into the weeds with how to underwrite people, because it's just a new product. So you have to underwrite different. You have to figure it all out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and to me, what I'm hearing you say is like, if you're going to take this approach and you're going to explore this space, you really need to have some like soft psychology and people skills. Just because, like, what I heard was like, you have to be a good human connector in order to be like,
Definitely.
yeah, this is a men's house. In order to put into place the house rules that would apply to them, and I think
Yeah.
that's really neat. And when you nail it, I can imagine like I mean, you really nail it and you create like long term relationships and tightness in that house. And it probably leads to long term tenants. That was a question I actually had. Like, what's the turnover rate in like your co living properties?
I would say like probably 2 to 3 years, which is longer than most people would expect. It's not like
Yeah.
some people do student housing. I can't do it. I can't turn over every 9 months. Not no knock to the student housing people out there, but I just it's not my thing. I'm more of a set it or forget it. That's why I like Section 8. They're staying for 5 to 8 years on average. This is actually a pretty long stay rate. People stay longer than they think they will because it's hard to find somewhere else where there's hardwood floors, stainless steel appliances, mini split system, free internet. You're really tapping this place out, and all utilities included. It's really hard to go and just say I'm out. The heck with this
Yeah.
place. I'm gonna go. Oh wait, I have to pay all this extra. Maybe I'll stay another year because it's an efficient, affordable way to live in a major city, in a
Yeah.
major city. So it's definitely it's been a good solution. I think as I built it around the people first with them in mind, it's been really good and well received.
So I'm just curious, and I know it varies from market to market, but like a lot of times like I'll talk to someone about like a sweet zone of like being in a class B 1,500 a month rent for a single family home. Like that's kind of a bread and butter for me in my portfolio. Like for
Yeah.
you, like what is your average tenant paying per room, and what have you found to be your sweet spot in your market?
I think it's so the sweet spot is I'm undercutting the studio market. That's the sweet spot.
Undercutting the
I'm
studio.
undercutting
Okay.
studios and one bedrooms. So go to Center City, wherever you're at. Go to Center City or the equivalent of in town, wherever you're at. Find the rents for the studios and the one bedroom apartments. I'm slashing those by like $250 easy a month, sometimes more. There's no competition. There's no competition because there's always a price shopper. No matter what
Yep.
market you're in, there's always a price shopper. But my quality, I'm a full gut renovator, so my quality is not low. This is not slum landlord living. This is stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors, granite countertops, stand up showers, private stack washer dryer in your bathroom unit. This is built for the working class. So there's not a drop in quality. You get to live with like-minded people. It's safe. You have your own security systems. You could be at work watching, the property and security systems that are there. We just keep people tapped in at a different level. So I'm really just, if I'm closer to Center City, if I'm in this pocket, this zip code, and it's closer to Center City, I might get $1,000 per co-living unit there, whereas I get 750 or 695 in the C class. So it just depends on where I'm at. But no matter where you're at, everybody wants an affordable solution, and everybody needs an affordable solution. And as we run headfirst into this next recession, whenever it is, like we don't have that crystal ball, right? Or else we'd be the leader of like the next Big Short movie, right? It'd be
I was
starring
gonna say
us.
we'd be on a beach and not talking
Yeah,
over the computer, but
yeah. But we don't know. But when it happens, people start to choose these alternatives. They start to
yeah,
work their way down and kind of tighten their belt a bit. So building into this is a safer way than some people. Like I like B class, but some people who tap into the A class, those people lose their jobs first, and those assets can get hit pretty hard in a recession, especially in the
yeah.
city.
Well, you kind of anticipated my next question because um, what I was going to say is obviously the market is changing, and for most places across the country right now, we're seeing inventory gains, we're seeing inflation out of control. Obviously, interest rates are going up and kind of bouncing around all over the place. So we're clearly the market's changing from what it was back in March, which is where I would kind of
Yeah.
position it was the height. So as you think about this, it sounds like, I mean, you're pretty bullish on this being a really good solution heading into this next market. I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say, right? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I think this is a good solution for sure.
So like then if I'm someone who is looking to break into co-living, like where do I start? What would I do heading into this market change if I want to start getting into this right now?
I would start to I call this like my forming of like Captain Planet, right? So all I can do is walk you through kind of my aha moments and how I arrived at it. So how did I form the Captain Planet of like co-living? Well, one, you have to combine some powers. So I call up my zoning attorney and I'm just like, hey, can I do this? What are the requirements or the ordinances for like people living together? Well, in Philly, no more than 3 people not related by blood can live in a single family residence without it being qualified as a rooming house. So not related by blood. Okay, so 3 people, right? Okay, cool. So then I call my architect. Can I build it? Could you build 3 master suites in one property and just have a kitchen and no living room, no dining room? Sure, as long as it's up to this code and the hallways are this wide, and so we can build it. Okay, can I evict it? Call the eviction attorney. If I put 3 people in this property, what kind of lease would I need to be able to get them out if they don't pay? Can I evict it? Yeah, we can evict it. I can draft that lease and it'll be just like, they do in the room rentals, and we'll do it this way and have it designed like this. Okay, so I can do it according to the code. I can build it and I can evict it. I just formed the Captain Planet for co-living. I just combined these 3 minds. Now, as long as you can go out and execute on it and go out and tenant it and property manage it, you can do it. And those are the questions and the people that you would need to combine in any municipality, because the rules will change. If I go to Baltimore, I can rent to no more than 4 people not related by blood. So now I'm building 4 master suites, probably in a 3-story townhome, to cash that out. 750 times 4, that's $3,000 a month coming in on a property that should be renting for like 1650. So that's a gold mine there. If I go to Atlanta or parts of Florida, it's 6 people. So now it's starting to get nutty, right? So yeah. It depends on where you're at. You have to ask these questions. In some places, it's 2 people. So depending on where you're at, you want to ask those questions to kind of work through it like I did. Make sure you can evict it. Make sure you can build it. Make sure it's not going to qualify as a rooming house. So you're not going to need any type of zoning board approval or variance. And as long as those things, work out, they work out. Outside of that, getting with somebody who's done it is the best way. I mean, what they don't tell you about the School of Hard Knocks is it's 100 times more expensive than mentorship. I wish I would have known that. You think it's about 2 to 3x. That's kind of what you think mentally. Like, 2 to 3 times. I'll learn from experience. It's 100 times. So if you have $500,000 or $1 million, go burn it. Burn it and go figure it out. If you don't, drop a couple K on mentorship and save the money. And better yet, even if you have $1 million, drop a couple K on mentorship and then go invest that $1 million properly. Don't burn it trying to figure it out. A little
bit better cash on cash return in that case.
Exactly.
So exactly. I love how you just broke that apart and made it like so simple. It's like, hey, can I build this? Can I evict this? Can I like zone? Is this zoned in a way that I can do this? I mean, that's phenomenal. So like, where do you see yourself going next, Brian? I mean, you've got Cashflow University. You are doing some like mentorship and training. Like, is your focus like fully turning into that? Or are you still developing? Or are you still boots on the ground? Where do you go next from here?
I'm still building, right? I'm still building. I got 2 young guys now. I got a 3-year-old and an 11-month-old now, 2 boys. So I'm spending time with them, building them. These guys are huge. I'm 6'7". I think these guys are going to be footers, right? These guys are going to be 7 footers probably. They're way bigger than I am. But I'm having so much fun, to be honest. I'm having fun building others. I look at my community impact. I grew up in Philly. I was blessed to be able to retire from the 9-to-5 at age 30 and build over 300 properties, in my city and have community impact and do that mostly in the hood, in the C class, right? Now I think about how can I have more community impact nationally and help other people to build their neighborhoods that they grew up in. And doing what I'm doing now is having more impact. Going out and building, I have to build 100 developers if I want to impact 3,000 properties or 30,000 properties, right? I can't build them all by myself, even though I'm pretty crafty. And I probably, with enough money and time, I could. But I want to spend that time with my family, and I want to build other people to go out and make their millions, because it's kind of like everything I do is multifaceted. When I help somebody to become a millionaire and build their 100 properties, in doing that, they're going to hire contractors locally, and they're going to help to have hundreds of thousands of dollars going to those contractors, putting food on their table. They're creating jobs. They're creating better housing, affordable housing. We don't really gentrify all that much with what we do. So we're bringing people back. We're adding density into the community. Money's bouncing back in these communities. It's just it's such a big community impact that it's where I like to stay. I could go flip houses in the A class with the same contractors, with the same mind, right? There's nothing stopping me. I know how your appraiser thinks. I know the value of everything anywhere that I want to know the value. It's very easy. You could drop me out of a parachute in Boise, Idaho right now. I know that I'd be reading you the value of what your appraisal will be tomorrow. Like, it's really not hard for me, but I love having that community impact. These cities, these inner cities need this level of thought and application. So I just love what I'm doing, and I'm looking forward to kind of keep doing it. I'm still building. I'm building houses for people. I got people in the course from all over the country and even outside of the country. So yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun, man. It's hard to say.
Dude. And I think it's like you've built a business that creates a win-win-win, like in all directions, right? You're having community impact, you're having people impact, you're making more money, you're building long-term wealth generational for that 3-year-old and 11-month-old, even though they're, sounds like they're going to have some big contracts in the future. And that's that is a neat place to live, man. So, hey, I could talk to you for a long time. And yet with our time, I want to transition us into the last segment of our show, which is 3, 2, 1 action. It's the same 3 questions I ask every single guest. So you ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So who has had the most significant impact on your business and why?
I want to say my brother has had my brother does commercial granite all across the country. He's been doing it for about 15 years. He works on 100-unit buildings. Wow. And when I was getting started, I'm coming to him, and he's like a project manager. He's the engineer mind. I'm the finance guy. He's the engineer. When we were kids, he would pull a remote apart, take it all apart, and put it back together. Like, he's always been wired this way. And I'm really good at creating systems that are simple, that don't break at scale. I'll only create a system that can work at 100x because it won't break. I won't even build it if I'm working on one deal if it won't work on 100 at a time. And I get to bounce all of my system ideas off of him and use his decades of experience in project management. And I've created some amazing systems just off of phone calls with him. Hey, what do you think? What should I do here? How can I watch these guys better? So my brother's had an amazing impact on my ability to create world-class systems that help me to get, to where I'm at, for sure.
That's super cool. And I've got to ask, who beats who on one-on-one?
From what I can remember, he would always beat me, and I would always beat my dad. So it was like a funny triangle where it's like we're always getting beat and can't beat one of the 3. But that was how it used to work. My dad would always beat him. He would always beat me. I would always beat my dad.
Very cool. All right. Question number 2. What book has had the most significant impact on your business and why?
I would say The Richest Man in Babylon has been the most powerful book from a personal finance standpoint. The other book I would say is the Section 8 Bible. I would be remiss if I didn't say that for my diehard real estate people. Go out and get the Section 8 Bible, volumes 1 and 2. I think they might have volume 3 out by now, but I started with volume 1. That will teach you. It's a story about 2 guys in the early 2005, 2007 from Philly, South Philly guys who went out and built out up a 300 to 400 property portfolio of Section 8 properties in about 5 years. And they talk about how they did it in the hood, running around with a 6-shooter. Like these guys have the best stories, but they give so much knowledge in that book that is I mean, it is real. And I've battle tested some of their systems that they give you in the book. Unbelievable systems. Unbelievable.
Very cool. Well, obviously, Richest Man in Babylon gets said a lot. Section 8 Bible, that's the first time I've heard of that.
Section 8 Bible.
I'm going to definitely look that up,
do
man.
It. Gotta do it.
So the third and final question, man, as we start to bring it home is, this is the All-In podcast. We challenge listeners to go out and not just like hear this stuff, but actually go take and implement and take action on this. Go all in on something that they heard today. So my question for you, Brian, is if there was one piece of advice that you could give to listeners today about how they could move their business forward, okay? Like, what would the one action item be?
The one action item would be to invest 10% of your earned income in your education every year. And that's like Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar style stuff, which I probably picked that up from one of them, right? But investing that 10% of your income in your own education in whatever you're trying to do. Like if I want to learn how to go do YouTube ads, I'm going to go to somebody who's already rocking it. And I'm going to learn, because if you're going to learn anyway, you're going to pay anyway. And that's the lesson that we all need to learn. There are shortcuts, but you got to pay for all of them. So if you try to go hard knocks, you're going to pay 100x, 10x, 100x. You're better off going to somebody who's already done it, battle tested it, made mistakes, and just getting the results like right away. But you have to be of that mindset that you're going to like pay tithes to yourself, that 10% to your own education, to getting better. Most people have a long list of things that need to change. This needs to change for me to be successful. This. And the one thing that's not on their list is them. It's not on their list. So the one thing you need to scratch your whole list and just put me on the list, and then start investing that 10% into you. And as you do that, you're going to get exponential growth, not just step-by-step growth, but exponential. So the best thing you can do to step up your business is to get a coach, get somebody who's doing it, who can push you, who can cause you to think differently, or just feed you ideas and experience expertise. That's going to accelerate you more at times than going out and just testing and failing forward. So
I 100% agree. I run Keller Williams real estate offices, and it's built right into our model. Like self-improvement and education is something that you should invest exactly that percentage, 10% of your budget ought to go towards exactly what you're talking about. I like to say to, my agents that, hey, blind spots, like if you knew they were there, they wouldn't be blind spots. Like blind spots by definition, you can't see. And so you need someone outside of you to be able to help you see those things so that you can move forward. Man, this has been a fun conversation. And I know our listeners are going to want to connect with you, find more of your content, maybe even look you up for some of that mentorship through your website. So where can people connect with you, Brian?
I'm easy to get a hold of. If you're on YouTube, you can find me, Brian Loves Cash Flow. That's easy to remember because I love cash flow. So Brian Loves Cash Flow on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, Brian Grimes _247 CFU for 24/7 Cash Flow University. Of course, 247cashflowuniversity.com. You can find me. I have a free training that everything backlinks to, which is www.workwithgrimes.com/cashflow, workwithgrimes.com/cashflow. Find me on LinkedIn, Brian Grimes. You can find me, on Facebook, Brian Grimes, and get invited to our private Facebook group. So I'm easy to get a hold of.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much for investing some of your time with us. I know you're a busy guy, doing big things, and you add a lot of value to our community through this conversation. So I appreciate it. And if you're ever out here in Scottsdale, I'm gonna drag you onto the court for my men's league with me. We could use a 6'7" player. So yeah. Anyway, man, next time I'm in Philly, I'm gonna look you up, and we'll have to connect. Guys, this has been another episode of the All In Podcast, today with Brian Grimes, Cashflow University. And like I always say, don't just sit on this information. Go out and take action. Play all in. And we'll catch you next time on the All In Podcast. Brian, thanks.
All right.
Man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play all in.